adaptations, because I feel like a lot of people misconstrued some of the things that we said during that Epic the Musical part. We generally are okay with things being adapted, and a lot of people would probably think it hypocritical that we saw this adaptation of Greek mythology and we were like, this is shitty and it shouldn't exist. But yet we're watching an adaptation of a book to a TV show and saying this is the best thing we've ever seen. Especially when there's a lot of book fans who are like, well, this isn't 100% book accurate, so I hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no problem with things getting adapted, and even with things getting adapted in ways that changes the story. It's more like when you're not being careful with the changes. It's Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Lord, as I roll my eyes.
Yes, so I wanted to give that one a fair shot when the live action came out, because I knew all of the millennial fans are going to be like, oh, I don't like this automatically without even watching it, right? And so I did watch it. I did watch it and tried to enjoy it. But there were parts that genuinely were hard to enjoy knowing the actual story, like Suki's characterization. Suki went from being the girl who humbles Sokka to the girl who has this unbearable crush on him because she's been stuck on Kyoshi Island. And Sokka is no longer sexist, but we're ignoring the part of that story where that is part of his character development. It was never glorified, like, oh yeah, we should be just like Sokka, who hates women and thinks like he's this big bad dude. No, it was like, Sokka is wrong, and he gets humbled really bad, to the point where he literally gets on his knees and tells a girl, can you please teach me? I need to learn from you.
Well, and also, like, the reason why Sokka felt like that was because of the pressure he felt to take care of his sister after his mom died.
The whole tribe.
And that's a very traumatizing thing. And so the whole thing of like to be like weirdly morally correct in that strange way about characters is like character flaws are there for a reason. They should be there because nobody is a perfect person, but it also helps you learn about that character more by understanding why they feel that way. And so the new Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation seems to be like taking the flaws that made you get really interested in these characters and just be like, oh, we're just going to get rid of that stuff. Like the thing that made me be like, can we talk about this? Because I don't know what to, I'm going to like lose it, is them saying that in the new season that they filmed, that Toph is more feminine. And I was like, then why is she named Toph? And it, like, yeah, this is like it's kind of like a more personal thing for me about this sort of thing because I'm not a feminine girl like that. Like, one of the critiques I know people give Rick Riordan a lot is that like most of the girls in Percy Jackson are not like feminine that way, and they feel like they're like putting that sort of feminist like stuff down, or like the idea that like if you're like a girly girl you're less than. I don't care that he doesn't have any girls like that, because most of the time in books that's who's in them. And so, and also like Becky's not like that. Yeah. And so Becky's like more similar to me, where she's like very comfortable with like the more masculine sides of her. She's not like a feminine girl. And so that's what they're going to write about, because these books are about the both of them. And so I don't know, maybe that makes me a jerk, but I just don't care that there isn't any of the more girly girl characters in Percy Jackson, because they're everywhere. And at least in this one book series, I see people that remind me more of me, and that makes me feel nice because I don't see that very often. Or there's the whole trope of like the character that is like that going through like a makeover and becoming more feminine, and then when they become more feminine suddenly they're like a lot happier. And the idea that like if you're like a tomboy, it's because there's something wrong with you and you're not like happy in your life or something, is like an overall trope too. And so I love the fact that all those characters in Percy Jackson are just like that. And in the same way, Toph's whole thing is that she doesn't want her, like, literally the first episode with her is about how she is pretending to be like this overly feminine person
Playful.
like she's supposed to be to
Yeah.
fool her parents, but the real her is somebody that's like fighting people in a ring and is like very masculine, is very comfortable being masculine. Like I saw a TikTok video this week of somebody talking, maybe you posted it actually, of somebody talking about how she's excited that a man is depicting her
Mm-hmm.
when they do like the play about
Your
them.
island players. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really excited about that because it means that she's like, people see her as like strong and tough and stuff, and that's what she likes to think of herself as. And so the idea that this show is bringing in somebody to play Toph who isn't disabled at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving her a disability coach instead of just hiring somebody that has low vision. They're instead paying an entire person to tell her, probably in an absolutely absurd way, how to act like you're disabled when she's not disabled. And then Toph is going to be like more feminine. That's the only thing they've said about her. And I'm like, so what is she going to do? Because Toph's whole thing is that she like disarms people because she's different than they expect her to be, like this feminine sort of Asian stereotype that can be very harmful for Asian women, and she like subverts that stereotype by instead being Toph, who is constantly beating people up and she can't even see, but she's doing that. Toph is just, that's how she is. And so if you have her on the show and she's not subverting that very problematic in the least way possible to describe that trope for Asian women, then why is she there?
Yeah.
And like I don't think they've ever even thought about it like that. They're just like, oh, we're just gonna make her different. And so I guess when we talk about like adaptations and what makes them good or bad, I feel like the Percy Jackson movies and the Percy Jackson show like sums it up, because I know there are people on Reddit that are like, well, an adaptation is good if it's like exactly the same as like the source material. And then they get confused about why Rick Riordan and Becky are letting things be different in the show, because then they don't understand what makes something good. And it's like nobody wants a carbon copy.
No.
That would be very boring. What people actually want is just like the overall kind of idea, theme, thematics, like character arc and development. As long as those things are still there, and especially when it comes to the show, they found ways to have those same arcs happen just in like different ways that I thought was actually better. Like Luke trying to recruit Percy and then trying to kill him, and Annabeth throwing a dagger at his head. That I thought was better because it actually makes a lot of sense to me that Percy and Annabeth would realize after Percy and Grover almost got dragged into hell that Luke was obviously like gave them those shoes, and so he obviously wasn't trustworthy. And so it makes sense that they would try to test him the way that they've tested other people during that quest to see, and we're just like hoping that he wouldn't be that bad, and then we're devastated when he was as bad as what it seemed. That felt very much in character for them. And so it was like, yeah, this is very natural in the way that I'm like confused almost that Rick didn't write that in the original book. And so like the reason why people hate the Percy Jackson movies isn't because they change things, is because they change things where the characters don't even resemble the original characters anymore. Because it's like what we said before, we were talking about them changing like the Tunnel of Love scene by not having like the spiders there. They don't need them there because they found a different way to like show Annabeth having emotions about something. So they don't need the spiders to be there. That's the overall idea behind that scene of why that's there.
Yes.
And so in the Percy Jackson movies, like in the second movie, Tyson is like this still is like a sweet child that is a very nice person, but everyone is rancid to him. And I actively want the Tyson in the movies to beat everybody up because he's doing all these nice things for them and they don't deserve it. They're horrible to him. Percy is horrible to him in the movie version of Sea of Monsters. He treats him like garbage. They act like he's a problem. They don't want to bring him anywhere. They constantly make jokes and stuff about how stupid he is. Percy would beat himself up if he ever even thought about doing something like that. Like, this child has a complex being mean to animals, much less being mean to, like, real people that he feels responsible for that are related to him or something. But it's just, that's what makes those movies bad. It's not that they change things, is that they change things to the point that the characters don't resemble who they were in the original story. Like, Luke is just this edgelord that walks around playing video games and wearing all black, like he listens to My Chemical Romance. And he's not scary in the way that he's supposed to be. Percy is more of like a jerk. You generally don't know why Percy and Anna are supposed to like each other when you watch the movies, because there's nothing about them that really that makes you want them to be together.
Like, they give more attention to him and Clarice, and that was weird.
They like leave Grover in the underworld. They're horrible to Grover in the movies. They're just overall, they just are horrible. And the every like kind of point that the books was trying to make for every single character and every single god and every single thing in the movies wasn't made. It like never even gets to like step one of what they were trying to do, like in the very first book, even, because they distorted the characters so much into these like weird like monster versions of them. And so that's why I say, like, I like Logan Lerman, but he never played Percy Jackson. I don't know who that guy is, but it's not Percy. Like, kind of Percy, but really not at all, because that's not him.
And I will say one thing about the Avatar adaptation that I think was great, like A+, give me more of this, is they inserted more interactions between Zuko and Iroh that weren't there in the series. That added to, like, these are why these characters are together and love each other and protect each other. So they have a scene where Zuko goes to Iroh at Liu Chen's funeral, and everybody else is just kind of giving him very, like, standard, I'm really sorry that happened. But Zuko finds something that Liu Chen gave him, is like, he gave me this, I want you to have it, I'm really gonna miss him. And it's one of those touching moments. And then the other one is, like, when Zuko gets banished and he's sent on a ship, like, you know, smallest ship, Iroh has all of his bags, he's like, I'm ready to go with you, and Zuko's like, why would you come with me? Like, and Iroh says, I have everything I need on this ship. And the implication being you. Like, I just want to follow you. And then they play Leaves from the Vine in the background. I cried. I legitimately cried. That is a good adaptation because it adds to what we already have, you know? And like you said, with the Tunnel of Love scene, it almost adds more because Annabeth has to say, I care about this dude. I don't want him to die right here. I've never challenged how the gods do things at all, but I'm going to right now in this moment because what the hell is happening, you know?
Yeah. Even in the episode before that, when they're at the St. Louis Arch, and instead of Percy just ending up in the elevator with Echidna, he instead tricks them. The only time that trick will ever happen is that time, but he tricks them into, well, he tricks Annabeth into going, like, shoving her back down the stairs, so he's the one fighting Echidna. Instead, it's like him making the choice, instead of it just being by, like, randomness, the fact that he's, like, choosing that and showing those traits that he has in himself of not caring what happens to him kind of stuff, that is very much part of his character, that makes that better.
Yes.
And especially it makes it scarier for Annabeth and Grover too, that they have to, like, see him make that choice and banging on the door, asking him to let them in, and he doesn't let them in. And so that's it just makes the storyline better to, like, watch him do that, then watch them be so relieved in the next episode, and then have him almost do it again. And Annabeth just, like, refuses the second time to be like, absolutely not. I refuse to leave this place until I figure out how to fix this stupid chair. Because this person has almost killed themselves for me twice in the last 2 days. And I'm just not going to let this happen anymore. But it's like you need that when you're watching a TV show. You need to see, like, Annabeth changing her mind about him or getting to know him. Like, when you're reading The Lightning Thief, you're in Percy's head. And so the part about the book that I remember at the end is when they get to the whole book, he's worried that, you know, Grover or Annabeth are going to betray him when they get to the end, and they're not going to try to save his mom. And then when they get to the underworld, they both say like, let's go save your mom. And he thinks like, oh my God, I'm so relieved that these people, you know, didn't do that. Now I can actually like trust them, and they might actually be my friends because they didn't turn against me. But when you're watching it on a show, you need to see that out loud because we're not in his mind. Just those things are there to, because they help you understand the characters faster. And the thing I always try to say to like people who critique the show is that they don't have to do all that setup stuff in season 2.
Yeah.
They don't have to explain how the world works or what camp is or any of that kind of stuff. And so that's why they can just like go. Like as soon as the season starts, they can just go. And it's like a nonstop sort of thing because they don't need to spend all of that like walk and talk time anymore because we have all their characterization set up. We know the overall arcs of the story. We know who everybody is. So they can just like get into everything right away. And so the overall idea is not that like adaptations have to be exactly the same as the original source material. It's just as long as they don't defer from like the overall kind of thing, like narrative, like character development they're supposed to reach by like the end of that book or season. That's really the important thing. And like when we talk about Avatar The Last Airbender, like none of them reach anything by the end of the first season. And it's hard to believe that that will be better in the second season when they're talking about Toph being feminine.
Yeah.
And things like that. It's like, then what is she gonna do? Like, what is her character arc gonna be this entire show if she apparently is fine with being how her parents want her to be? Why does she want to leave? Like, just like the most basic thing, why does she want to leave and go with them?
I mean, I'm sure they'll stick with her parents still don't want her to be a bender, but like they gave her a teacher. It just wasn't the right teacher.